fast for you. If you can't keep up, you're through. I'm too fast for you. Eat my dust, you're slow as rust.
I'm talking to Mike Murray there, one of the original residents left down the docks here in Galway.
Well, I was born down at the docks on the 15th of July 1925. I went to school at the monastery school up in Market Street, and I left there when I was 14. I got a job in the Galway woolen mills for 12 and 9pence a week. I used to give 10 shillings to my mother, and I used to have the half a crown for myself, and that used to do me for the week, because in those days you wouldn't be smoking or anything like that.
Right.
Later on in years, when I left the woolen mills, my father had a taxi, so I started driving the taxi for my father. That was in 1946.
1946.
In those days, we used to drive a big American Dodge and a Chrysler. The fares that time were £1 a mile. We used to do an all-day tour of Connemara, about a round trip of 120 miles for £6. I kept driving anyhow until about 1952, and I got fed up, and I emigrated off to England. I went to Coventry. I've spent a year in London. From there I went to Coventry a year after, and I got a job with the old Standard Motor Company, who later became part of British Leyland and the Rover, and I was there for 30 years. I came back to Ireland again in 1981, and I was 57 years of age then, and I got a job up in Crown Control in Merview, and I was there for 8 years till 1990, when I was 65 then, and when you were 65 you were forced to retire. So I retired in 1990, and I never done a tap since. I'm 86 now, and I'm living down in a new apartment here at the docks. Just across the road is the marina with all the yachts. So when I'm sitting out the window, I think I'm in Monte Carlo.
Except for the weather, Mike.
Anyhow, the weather here at the moment is not very good. But I can remember the old days at the docks, when the coal boats used to unload just across the road from the house, and you'd wake up in the morning and all the men would be there with their horse and carts moving the coal into McDonough's and into Heinz's yard. They were happy old days, and it was all horses that time. My father was a stevedore on the docks. He worked for the Limerick Steamship Company, and he was there all his working life. He was also the stevedore on the tender for the first liner they called into Galway. I can't remember exactly what year that was, but he was the stevedore, and he was in charge of the loading and unloading of the luggage and all that.
Yeah.
But things have changed a lot now since those days. There was 9 of us in family. My father, I remember in 1940, he was getting 50 shillings a week, and he reared the 9 of us, and we never went without anything. We always had full and plenty to eat. My father never drank or smoked, and we had happy times. There was no hardship, although things were supposed to be hard in those days. But then again, most of the people had to emigrate that time, and they used to go away to England and America, and they'd send money home to supplement the family budget.
Okay.
What else can I tell you now at this stage? I can remember, I remember when the first liner was sunk in 1939. It was carrying passengers. It was a Canadian ship, and it was torpedoed off the west coast of Ireland, and they landed all, passengers were picked up by a Norwegian tanker, and all the passengers were brought into Galway on the tender. And the the people were on the ship and they had no clothes, only blankets around them. And all the shops in Galway opened up late that night and they gave them all free clothes and everything else. They were happy days. And during the war, you couldn't have any lights shown in the house. They used to put up big black curtains on the windows so that no light would escape. The army used to do manoeuvres around the docks as well in those days, you know. And I remember one Sunday there was a boat coming in and the army were down on the pier. And the fellow was shouting, "You can't come in here, you can't come in here." And your man said, "Oh, I have to come in." He said, "I'm the pilot. I'm the city pilot." Well, he said, "I don't give a shite." He said, "If you're Punch's pilot, you can't come in here." But anyhow, he got in and everything was okay. People used to be afraid to go out at night that time because there was no street lights or anything, and even the cars couldn't have lights on. The petrol was rationed in during the war, and it was only people that had taxis and permits that could go to sports meetings or anything. Everybody was only allowed a certain amount of petrol coupons, and once them were gone, that was it. You had no more petrol till you got your next allocation of coupons.
What about, Mike, tell me their time about when you were doing the taxing, you carried many a famous person.
Oh yes, I carried a lot of, personalities, such as I wrote, what was his name at all? He used to come to the town hall. He was a famous Shakespearean actor. Anu McMaster his name was. I drove him. I also drove the American ambassador to Ireland when he came to Galway at one stage. He was going out to Connemara, so I took him out there. I also took some film stars, Googie Withers and her husband John McCallum, when they went on their honeymoon to Ashford Castle. I also remember when they were making the film The Quiet Man, and all the stars of the film were all staying at Ashford Castle, and we all went out there one Sunday afternoon, and we met John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara and all. We still got photographs of it. My sister has photographs taken with John Wayne in Ashford Castle.
Okay.
I spent 2 nice happy years in Costello Lodge out there near Carrow. It used to be the home of Bruce Ismay. He was one of the directors of the White Star Line that owned the Titanic, and he was on the Titanic the night it was sunk with the iceberg. He bought this place in Connemara and he used to go and spend a lot of time there, you know. Yeah. And I used to drive his wife as well. Actually, I got a picture here and I can show, you know, that was taken outside the house in Costello Lodge. I was out there for 12 weeks in 1949 and 1950. Now, what's after that?
Whatever you want. Whatever you want to say now.
I also remember the old years in Galway when they used to have the Eucharistic procession going up the town. There were thousands of people marching in the Eucharistic procession, and all the town would be decorated with flags and bunting, and all the houses along the route used to have statues and lights in the windows. People were very religious in those days. Unfortunately, they're not like that now. Mm-hmm. I also remember when Dr. Brown was made Bishop of Galway. I remember his consecration in the old Pro Cathedral in Middle Street. And I also remember the big meetings they used to have up at the square when the election would be on. And they used to address the public meetings outside the Bank of Ireland at the top of Eyre Square there. And there'd be thousands of people. They'd be all cheering for De Valera or whoever would be in town that night. The Dockers had a band that time. They used to call it the Porter Band because they'd go out for anybody to give them a few pints of beer. If De Valera had come one night, they'd be out playing for him. The next night, the Fine Gael man would come and they'd be out for him. They had no political affiliations.
Affiliations, yeah.
But anyhow, they used to call them the Porta Band because they used to leave money in the pubs for them to have quite a few drinks. When I started drinking in my young days, it was only 10 pence a pint. You used to get 24 pints for £1. But the problem that time was you never had £1. But if you had a half crown, you'd get 3 pints at least. You know, there were hard times in a lot of ways, but we used to walk in and out to Salt till about 10 times a night. It'd be, talking to girls and messing around, go down the Savoy. We got all dressed up then on a Sunday night with the suit on and everything, up to the Savoy or down to the Astoria. And my father would say, you won't get dressed up going to Mass, but you get dressed up going to the Savoy. We used to go dancing in the old stair ballroom there, which used to be the tourist office. Up the first floor there, that was the dance hall. And also there was the hangar in Salt Hill, as you know. Yeah. And then later on, Sea Point was built, and that was when the hangar closed down then at that stage.
You must remember some good characters, Mike, that I heard about Shoots.
Yeah, Shoot. There was a couple of characters around. Shoot was one of them. He used to be a small little fella. He used to go on the bike when he'd see you coming. He'd say, bang, bang. He used to have a miniature replica gun. He'd say, bang, bang, shoot. And there was another one, they used to call him Shorts. Because his trousers would be always up around here. They used to call him Shorts. And there was Malyogs. Malyogs was another fella. Yeah, he was another character. When in the winter time, then you'd always find him in the Augustinian church because he used to have the heat on, and he'd be really wrapped around the radiators, you know. There was a few nice characters. It was happy days, really, you know. At St. Patrick's Day, then the army would go out marching on St. Patrick's Day, you know, and be a great old crack in the town, and the flags would be out and everything. But I don't know, things have changed a lot now.
But you have great memories of Galway, Mike.
Huh?
You have great memories of Galway.
Oh, I have. You know, it was a lot of happy times. I remember a lot of people getting drowned as well in the docks in those days, you know. I remember, a good many years ago now, there was a party coming in from Salt Hill to, after attending a wedding. And it was a foggy evening, they lost their way and they came down round by the docks. And they accidentally drove into the docks down at the end of the pier there. I think there was 3 or 4 drowned that night.
But I know, God help us, I know, Mike, in the corner over here they used to have a light one time like that, and the boys used to jump in for the price of a pint. Do you remember that story? Over by Brennan's Bar over here.
They used to have what?
They used to have this big long, I remember for years there was this big long tall light there, red light.
Oh,
and the boys used to jump off that for the price of a pint.
Yeah, that was
in the olden days.
That was for the ships coming in.
Yes.
The red light, you see, when you're coming in, it'd be dark, of course, at night, and they used to, you have to line up with that light, then you see, and that would direct you.
But did you hear about the boys used to jump for years ago for the price when they wanted a pint?
I don't remember anybody jumping off it.
Oh, that's a story I was told.
Remember they used to jump off the down in Wood Quay there, where the old bridge was.
Yeah, the old bridge, yeah.
They used to all jump off that whole thing there, down to Steamer's Quay.
That's right, they're still doing it today, actually. They are. So cheers, Mike, it's been great talking to you.
I'm too fast for you, I'm too fast for you. If you can't keep up, you're through. I'm too fast for you. Eat my dust, you're slow as rust.